Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be covering a topic from Cambridge IGCSE Biology, the topic of organization of an organism and subtopic cell structure. Now, in this video, we're going to be learning about the levels of organization within a multicellular organism. Now, when we consider a multicellular organism, let's think of some examples like human beings, like a dog, a big tree, or any multicellular organism. We are all complex organisms, right? So, complex as in we have many cells in our body, different tissues, different organs in our body. So, if we study the structure within a multicellular organism, there are a few levels of organization within a multicellular organism, and that's what we're going to learn about in this video over here. The levels of organization within a multicellular organism. So if you consider a multicellular organism, the simplest part of a multicellular organism is a cell. So multicellular organisms such as us, human beings, we probably have millions and millions of cells in our body, right? So one of this cell, one tiny little cell in our body, this is the basic unit of our life, right? This is the basic structural unit and the functional unit in us, in a living organism. Or if I am to say that in simpler terms, the cell is basically the building block of a living organism. So many of these cells are what build up a living organism. So that's why we consider the cell as the first level of organization within a multicellular organism. And then, when we consider the levels of organization, there are some cases where many cells with similar structures. So I'm drawing over here cells that have similar structure together. So in this picture over here, I've drawn 5 cells, right? I've drawn 5 of these cells that have grouped up together. If you ever happen to have a group of cells similar to this diagram, a group of cells with a similar structure that are working together to perform a particular function, this group of cells, we call this a tissue. So a tissue is basically a group of cells with similar structures. You can see that all these cells look very similar to each other. So a group of cells with similar structure that are working together to perform a particular function. So that is the second level of organization in a multicellular organism. Now, for you to understand cells and tissues better, let me just give you a few examples of cells and tissues. Now, if we take cells, we've learned in some of our previous videos of some examples of specialized cells, right? For example, we've learned of the epithelial cells found in animals. And with regard to plants, we've learned of cells such as the xylem vessels, right? So one individual cell such as an epithelial cell or a xylem vessel is what we call a cell, when there is just one of it. And sometimes you see these epithelial cells grouping up together. So in that case, a group of epithelial cells would make up a tissue, right? And we call this the epithelial tissue, the epithelial tissue. And sometimes with regard to plants, many xylem vessels group up together. That's in fact always the case. Many xylem vessels stack up one over the other. So a group of xylem vessels would be called a xylem tissue. So I hope you all understood the difference between a cell and a tissue. A cell is just one single cell, whereas a tissue is a group of cells working together. All right. And the next level of organization we are moving on to is an organ. Now we know of different organs, right? Let me start off with some examples. Examples of organs found in animals are like the heart, brain, lungs, stomach, and so on. We know different organs in our body. And if you think of organs present in a plant, the plant has organs such as the leaf, The leaf is an organ, the root is an organ, and the stem is an organ. So the plant has different organs as well. So what exactly is an organ? An organ is basically a structure that is made from different tissues. So an organ is something that has different tissues in it, and these different tissues are working together to perform a specific function. So within the heart, there would be different tissues. Within the brain, there will be different tissues working together. So that is what we call an organ. And then the final level of organization are the organ systems. And an organ system is basically a group of organs with related functions working together for a specific body process. For example, let's understand this through one of the organ systems that we already know about. Let's take the digestive system for an example. In the digestive system, we have different organs, right? Such as the stomach, the small intestines, and the large intestines. And all of these organs are having related functions. They have interrelated functions and they are working together to carry out digestion. So that is exactly what we mean by an organ system. It's a group of organs with related functions that are working together to perform a particular life process. So examples of organ systems include the digestive system, the respiratory system, and so on in animals. And if you take a plant, plants have systems too, such as the shoot system is the system of the plant containing the stems and the leaves and so on. All right. So I hope you all understood these levels of organization. The smallest level of organization is the cell, and then many cells together make up a tissue. And then there are structures called organs that contain many tissues working together. And then finally, many organs with interrelated functions are considered as an organ system. So the next slide over here kind of sums up everything that we've just learned. For example, we are considering this multicellular organism over here. In this multicellular organism, let's start with the basic unit, the first level of organization, which is the cell. And we can see that many cells together, many cells are grouping up together to form a tissue over here. And then many tissues are grouping together to form an organ. An organ such as this over here, shown here, is a stomach. So an organ is a structure that has different tissues in it. And then finally, many organs with related functions that are working together make up an organ system within this organism. So these are the important levels of organization that you need to know about. It starts off with the cell, and then the tissues, and then the organs, and finally the organ systems. So now that we've understood that, let's look at a few more examples of these examples of tissues, organs, and organ systems within an animal and a plant. So let's start off with a plant. We're just taking a single organ system of a plant. We'll consider the shoot system in this case. If you consider the shoot system, now we know that organ systems are made up of many organs with related functions, right? So when we consider the shoot system, this system is made up of different organs in the plant, such as the leaf, the stem, the flower, and the fruit. And if you consider these organs, we've also learned that organs are structures that have different tissues within them. So if you consider all of these organs, there are different types of tissues in them, such as the epidermis, the mesophyll, the xylem tissue, the phloem tissue, and so on. So this is what you need to understand. Organ systems are made up of many organs with related functions, and organs are structures that contain different types of tissues. So now that we've learned about the shoot system, let's also look at one system found in animals, such as the digestive system. For example, if we consider this digestive system is made up of many different organs having related functions, such as the esophagus, the stomach, small intestine, and the large intestine. And these organs themselves, they have different tissues within them, such as the muscle tissue, the connective tissue, the nerve tissue, and the epithelial tissue. So this is what you need to know about the levels of organization within a multicellular organism. I'm just going to um, uh, name these levels one more time. So it all starts with the cells, and then many cells group together to form tissues, and then many tissues group up together to form organs, and many organs group up together to form organ systems. So this is the level of organization. I hope all of you understood this well. So now that we've finished what we need to know, let's try out a few questions from the question. All right, so here's our first question. Which group of terms is given in ascending order of degree of organization? Now, we've just learned the levels of organization within a multicellular organism, and we know it all starts with a cell, and then many cells group up to form a tissue, and then many tissues form an organ, and many organs with related functions make an organ system. So it's definitely answer 2 that is showing the correct order. And then we have another question over here. In a plant, what is formed by a group of xylem vessels? So we've learned this as well. Now we know that xylem vessel itself is a cell. And if we consider a group of cells, we know that that's called a tissue. So a group of xylem vessels is considered as a tissue. So our answer is going to have to be answer 2, and that's what I'm choosing over here. So that's all for this topic. I hope all of you got a good understanding on this. Stay tuned to our next video.
Subscribe us now for more videos and content.